We have started a, sounds like it's too loud, it's a bit too loud. We have started a new series on worship from last week, and as the first part we looked at the topic of the unquenchable worshipper last week. And just to recap it very briefly, it is so easy for our heart of worship to be quenched by the pressures and the trials of life, by the lack of supply of the revelation of God, appreciating who God is, and by the cutting off of the oxygen of prayer, breath of prayer. So we saw Habakkuk, in the midst of all of those things, the most challenging and fruitless situation, he still worshipped God joyfully. That verse we just read together. So this morning, we're going to look at this topic of undivided worshiper, or the undistracted worshiper. So that's the topic that we want to think about this morning. One of the biggest problems in our life today is busyness. Our hearts are tucked about in so many different directions. I'm sure you will say yes to that. Around every corner, there are new distractions waiting for our attention. So many things can deflect our time and energy away from loving and worshiping God. So in our lives, we have to worry about so many different things: family, children, job, health, bills, things in the house. So often we are divided. Our hearts are divided in so many different directions. As a result, we find it hard just to focus on the one thing, that is to worship God. Even in church, even when we come to church, we find it hard to focus on worshiping God. Now, Warren Wiersbe, the famous American preacher, he said this: worship is the believer's response with all that he is, mind, emotions, will, and body, to all that God is and says and does. So worship is our response with all that he is, mind, emotions, will, and body, and to God, to all that God is and says and does. Now David, he prayed 1,000 years ago. This is the ancient prayer of David in regards to worship. He prayed, "One thing I ask of the Lord, this is what I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple." That's beautiful. That's a beautiful verse, isn't it? David, the king of the nation. Just imagine as a king, there are so many things that is asking for his attention. He had several wives, several children, and all this politics, and the enemies trying to attack at every opportunity. So just imagine how busy his life must be. But this is his prayer. "One thing I ask of the Lord, I seek, I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple." But that seems a far cry from many modern-day distracted worshippers in church. Many modern-day worshippers look more like this. Can you see the picture there? And all kinds of distractions in that church, in that worship room. And what kind of distraction can you see there? What kind of distraction can you see there? So people falling asleep, texting, checking on the phones, and looks like they're thinking something else. You can see in that picture all kinds of distractions in worship. Although the scripture said, Jesus said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength." But the challenge is we often find ourselves fighting various distractions in our lives. So when we think about common distractions to worship, perhaps things like distracted by other people, So you try to sing songs and worship God, and you see people coming in and going out, baby crying, and maybe you notice maybe this person has a new hairstyle or new clothes. So you're distracted by all those things, okay? Distracted by other people. Or maybe you are thinking and doing something else. Sometimes people read a novel in the church, clipping their fingernails and frequent trips to the toilet. Okay, so thinking and doing something else in the service and checking on the phone, which is a huge issue at the moment. Texting, checking messages, emails during the worship. And what about this? Fatigue, tiredness. People are tired. Okay, they are tired physically, but also mentally, emotionally, but also spiritually, because of the pressures and problems of our life. It just weighs on us heavily, and so people find it difficult to focus on God and falling into sleep. Okay, and sometimes it becomes a bit of a heavy. Fatigue, tiredness, and impatient attitude. Sometimes people become restless during the worship. Fidgeting, impatient, if we are focused on how many verses of a song are led, you counting, that's long song, that's too long, or maybe the prayer, someone comes to pray and you're counting the minutes, so that's 4 minutes, 5 minutes, that's too long, or maybe the preacher speaking, that's over time. Okay, if you are thinking about those things, you become a little bit impatient, you become restless in worship. Or what about this? Critical mind. You try to find fault, maybe with the worship leader, maybe service MC, the preacher, those who lead prayer, maybe the Lord's Supper. Okay, you can find faults. People can make mistakes. Maybe pitching a song incorrectly, misquoting a verse, incorrect words in preaching, misspelling on the PowerPoint on the screen. So you can find so many errors and mistakes, and if you focus on that, you can be easily distracted by that. So there are so many possible potential distractions in our worship. Now, one of the best stories that can teach us about undivided, undistracted worshiper is the story of Martha and Mary. Very well-known story in the Bible. Martha and Mary, they were sisters, but they were quite the opposite in their temperament. It seems like Mary was more reflective personality, quieter, reflective personality, whereas Martha appears to be more energetic, practical type of person. So, according to the scripture, this is what the scripture says in verse 38. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. So you notice here, Martha was a hospitable woman. Now let's get rid of this idea that Martha was, everything about her was bad. She was distracted and she's not focusing on Jesus. And Mary, everything about Mary was good. Let's get rid of those ideas. Okay, Martha was she was a very hospitable woman. When Jesus and disciples came to the town, the village of Bethany, Martha invited them. Okay, so that's hospitality, which was actually a very important social requirement in those days, and even today in Middle Eastern culture. Okay, you don't want to turn away somebody knocking on your door, so you welcome them. You're hospitable. In fact, the name Martha means a lady. She was indeed a very warm-hearted and hospitable lady. She was a good-hearted woman. She wasn't like a cold-hearted. She was warm-hearted. She was a good lady. Okay, she invited Jesus and the group. And also, it may not be so obvious when we read the scripture in NIV. Because he says in the next verse, 39, she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But when you read that verse in New King James Version, it says this: she had a sister called Mary who also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. Who also sat at Jesus' feet, suggesting it was both Martha and Mary initially, they sat before Jesus when Jesus entered the house. Okay, it wasn't Martha, began to do things from the very early on. They both sat at Jesus' feet in front of Jesus, listening to what Jesus had to say. Okay, and that's the custom in those days. Rabbi or teacher would sit on a chair, and all the disciples would sit on the ground. So they would sit in front of the teacher, the rabbi. Okay, so Mary and Martha are doing the same. Okay? So initially, it seems Martha sat with Mary in front of Jesus to listen to his words. But then things begin to happen. Martha started working, whereas Mary continued to listen to Jesus. So at some point, Martha got up, and she felt like, I need to prepare dinner for Jesus and the disciples, which is a good thing. So she got up, she went to the kitchen, and she just started doing things. Okay, she felt the feeding Jesus was just as important as listening to his word. But then the problem begins to happen. She began to be concerned about so many things. Verse 14. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. Look how easy it is. You initially welcome Jesus, and you think about Jesus, you worship Jesus, you're so glad that Jesus is in your house, and you can listen to Jesus, you can talk to him, so you're so glad. Okay? You sit there for a while, and then you get up, and you start doing things for Jesus. And you start worrying about things. You are concerned about so many different things, all the details. And you begin to lose your focus. You wish to please him, you wish to serve him, and you wish to bless him. But that becomes distraction. And perhaps Martha, because she was the oldest sibling, and Mary, her sister, younger sister, and Lazarus, her younger brother, so maybe she felt the responsibility. I'm the eldest in the house. I need to make sure everything is in place, everything is done right, perfect. Okay, so that the honored guest Jesus and his disciples, they can enjoy our hospitality. So she really began to worry about all those things. And Martha became very busy, under great pressure, to get food prepared and ready for her guests. It's so easy to move from one place to another. Now, Living Bible says Martha was the jittery type, which means anxious type, and was worrying over the big dinner she was preparing. So she just wanted to have this massive, big dinner for Jesus. Okay, that's what we often do when we invite people, guests in your home. You want to make a lavish dinner, barbecue or dinner, whatever the menu is. Okay, so you are worried, you are under pressure. Okay? I came across a wonderful picture illustrating this point very well. So can you see the picture here? This is a painting, okay? And many pictures are pretty, but look at the menu here. There are fruits, fish, meat, and soup, and all kinds of menu in the painting. Okay? So Martha is thinking about all of these things. I need to prepare this. I need to prepare that. I need to make sure that this is ready and well prepared and well cooked. So she is worried about this lavish dinner, this big dinner that she is preparing for Jesus. The Message Bible says Martha was pulled away by all she had to do in the kitchen. Now, let's remember what she's trying to do is a good thing. Obviously, Jesus needed to eat. The disciples, they needed food. Okay, they all need to eat. So preparing food is good, is important. Okay, and so she's trying to do all these practical things, which is good thing. But sometimes the good thing can become distraction when it comes to worshiping Jesus. And so the good things become hindrance, distraction, worries, anxiety to Martha. I sometimes see that when I visit people's home for prayer, or when I accompany Pastor Kim, when he visits someone's home, and so say for example maybe somebody moved into a new home and they want us to come and pray for them. So we come. Okay? And the chief purpose of the visitation is to pray for the family, to bless the home and share the word of God and pray for the family. That's the chief purpose. But then, sometimes the families, they are so preoccupied with all the food preparation, drinks and desserts and all the preparations. Okay? And especially with the ladies, you can see, and she may be sitting there, or you can tell from her eyes and body language, she's fidgeting. She's not really sitting still. She's not really listening to what the pastor has to say. And she's coming in and out into the kitchen, and so distracted by all the good things. All the good things. Okay? She wants to bless the guests. Okay? But she is distracted by all of that. As a result, Martha found it hard to relax and enjoy her guests. The serving is not joy anymore. Now that's important. That's important part, isn't it? Serving is not joy anymore. It has become a burden. It's heavy. You are anxious. You are worried. And so look at here in the next picture, and you can see the look on her face, and so maybe here, so she doesn't look very happy there. She's a bit angry, she's a bit frustrated, and so in the scripture, eventually, she really found it hard to accept Mary's lack of contribution and lack of cooperation in all the preparation in the house. So she complains in verse 40. She came to Jesus and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." This exasperated Martha finally blurted out. Okay? And she complained, interestingly, she complained against Jesus. So he said, "Jesus, Lord, why don't you care? Don't you care?" Okay. So this is a really double complaint. She complains against her sister Mary, but also she complains against Jesus. Don't you care? Why you don't care? Okay. Why do you allow all these things? This is unfair. I'm doing all this hard work in the kitchen, and she just sitting there doing nothing and just listening to you. So why do you allow all these things? Just tell her to come and help me. Have we been there? You want to serve God, you want to serve Jesus, you want to serve in church, but then you're distracted slightly, and you are under pressure, and you begin to complain inside of you. You complain against God, and you complain against people. So she is complaining against Mary as well. She interrupted the conversation between Mary and Martha. Jesus and Mary. She interrupted the conversation, and she's strongly demanding that Jesus should tell Mary to stop helping her. And it says in the one part of that verse is, "My sister has left me to do the work by myself." Okay. So it suggests that Mary and Martha they started working initially in the kitchen when Jesus first arrived, in the reception of Jesus, and worked with her in the kitchen for a while. "My sister has left me to do the work by myself." Okay, so both Mary and Martha, they started working in the kitchen. But then as soon as Jesus began to speak, it seems, Mary returned and sat before Jesus and listened to him. Whereas Martha carried on working and doing all the preparation. Okay? Because for Mary, it was more important to listen. Okay? Obviously, Jesus was coming, and they tried to prepare everything in advance, the accommodation, the food. And so when things were done, Mary returned to Jesus and she sat down and listened to Jesus. But Martha just carried on, continued in that work. So Jesus corrects, looking to Martha, and she corrected Martha. In verse 41, "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her." Okay, now notice here, Jesus didn't condemn Martha. In fact, he's actually showing his great affection toward Martha. He calls Martha, Martha, Martha. The Lord answered. That's the only time a woman's name is repeated twice in the Bible. Okay, that's very rare to see in the Bible. But Jesus really showing his love and his compassion. He's not condemning, he's not rebuking Martha here, because he understands. I understand what you are trying to do. I understand you're trying to serve me. I understand you're trying to prepare food for me and my disciples. So I appreciate that. And thank you for that. That's good. So he says, Martha, Martha. The Lord answered. Okay. So what she was trying to do was a good thing. But then Jesus points out, but you are worried. You are worried and upset about many things. But only one thing is needed. Now the word worry there means inward worrying, anxiety. It's like a divided mind. You are worried about so many things. You're worried about this food, worried about the church, worried about drinks, okay? And then you're worried about the cleanliness. So you are worried means you have this inward anxiousness, anxiety, worrying anxiety, and you have a divided mind. Okay? But God doesn't want us to be in that situation. Philippians chapter 4 verse 6 says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So God doesn't want us to be anxious about things and worry about things in a divided mind. Okay? And Martha was in that situation. And the word upset, you are upset about many things. Upset means disturbed, distracted, outwardly. Okay? So both inwardly and outwardly, she was like, she was like visiting and worried and upset about all the details in the house. So Jesus is pointing out, well, that's not what I want. That's not what I'm looking for. Okay? God doesn't want our hearts to be divided in this way. 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 35 says, I am saying this for your own good, not to restrict you, but that you may live in a right way in undivided devotion to the Lord. God wants us to give undivided devotion to Him. Okay? Not a divided mind, not a divided heart. So Jesus very lovingly, but also firmly warned Martha of the danger of forgetting the most important thing in the midst of all the business and all the concerns of the details. It's almost like a saying, Martha, Martha, you are busy with many courses, many dishes, where just one dish would be fine with me. Don't worry about so many different dishes, Martha. I just need one dish. That's important. That's enough. Okay. And I wanna speak to you. I wanna have a fellowship with you. So Martha didn't realize that in her desire to serve Jesus, she was actually neglecting him. Okay. She left Jesus sitting at the corner, and she's doing all these things, all this business, all this preparation. Because she wanted to serve Jesus. But in fact, she was actually neglecting him, just sitting there, waiting for her. Okay. And sometimes that happens in our worship, when we are just concerned about all the practical things, all the preparations, all the little things, all the details. And we sometimes miss the point that we just neglect having fellowship and communion with Jesus. Okay. And then Jesus actually commanded Mary. He corrected Martha, but he commanded Mary. Look at Mary. Jesus says in verse 42, Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Okay. So she has chosen. Initially, it seems that she also welcomed Jesus and started working in the kitchen. But as soon as Jesus spoke, she came back and she sat. Okay. She sat before Jesus and she listened. The Message Bible says, Mary, who sat before the Master, hanging on every word, every word, hanging on every word. Just making sure she wants to hear every word that Jesus speaks. And that's why we say in church that don't worry about refreshment too much. Okay, we understand that people want to bless other people, and they want to make sure that nicely displayed, that everything is arranged perfectly, and sometimes they do that missing the service, missing the sermon, missing the worship, and doing all the preparations outside in the fellowship. That's kind of marathon. It's a marathon. So the more important thing is to come and sit and listen to what Jesus has to say. Okay, and I guess Mary may appear somewhat indifferent to housework. She's lazy. She's idle. Martha is active and busy and doing all the hard work, and Mary just sitting there and doing nothing. So it seems she appears to be like that. Okay? But that's a bit of a misunderstanding, because Mary had to serve all the practical work in the house before Jesus arrived, and when Jesus first arrived. Okay? But as soon as he spoke, she came back and sat before Jesus. Okay? And of course, all the preparation, all the practical things are important. They need to be done in advance, and then we can talk about them next week, how important they are. You'll be amazed how much God is into all the small details when it comes to serving Him. Okay, you'll be amazed about that. So we can look at it next week. But today, they're important. The practical things, they're important. We are not saying they are not important. They're important. They need to be done. Somebody needs to do it. For example, when we have an Easter or Christmas celebration, people need to serve and work. Okay, somebody needs to do it. So we appreciate, we thank those people. Okay, but we are talking about the most important thing here. The most important thing. And let's look at this point. And it is titled Worship or Service. Worship or work. Okay. It says, I cannot choose. I should have liked so much to sit at Jesus' feet, to feel the touch of His kind, gentle hand upon my head, while drinking in the gracious words He said, and yet to serve Him, O divine employee, to minister and give the Master joy, to bathe in coolest springs His weary feet, and wait upon Him while He sat at me. Worship or service which are at its best, to which He calls us, be it toil or rest, to labor for Him in life's busy stir, or seek His feet, a salient worship. Okay. We need to both. It's not just one or the other. We need to do both. Okay. And that's why in the Bible it's interesting. You see Martha and Mary, they are linked together. Okay. We are not saying the work is not important and just worship and just sitting before Jesus. We are not saying worship, just neglecting worship and doing all the practical things. We need both. But the priority is the worship, and the issue for us so often is we are distracted by all the practical details, and we lose our focus on worshiping Jesus. So Jesus says in the last verse, He says, only one thing is needed. Only one thing is needed. And what is that one thing? Well, that is spending quality time with Jesus in worship with undivided heart. Interestingly, when you spend that kind of quality time, quiet time, worship time, you become actually better in managing your all practical things in your daily lives. Okay? You have this inner strength, you have this inner peace, you have this wisdom given from God. So you are actually managing things better. You're not stressed so much because you have this inner strength and the joy that God gives you. And that's why Mary, you find Mary always sitting before Jesus. This is Mary's habit. Not only this time, Luke chapter 10, but you see when later in John chapter 11, you see Lazarus, their brother, is dead. Okay. And again, Mary, when Jesus came, Mary is sitting at His feet in grief. So when she is listening to him, she is at His feet. And when she is sad, she is also at Jesus' feet in grief. And also later, she anointed Jesus' feet. Remember that story? Breaking the alabaster jar and cleaning Jesus' feet with her hair. So again, Mary is sitting at the feet of Jesus. So always we see Mary at the feet of Jesus, listening to Jesus, in front of Jesus, and worshiping Jesus. David said this. Then King David went in and sat before the Lord. And he said, "Who am I, O Lord God? And what is my family that you have brought me this far?" Okay. So we need to sit before Jesus. We need to sit before God, meditating on the Word of God and spending quality time with Him. It also means Mary had this teachable spirit. She was willing to listen. She was willing to learn. Okay. She had this humble, teachable heart. So Jesus can speak and she can learn. David prayed this prayer, Psalm 86, verse 11. "Teach me your way, O Lord, and I will walk in your truth. Give me an undivided heart, that I may fear your name." That's a fantastic prayer, isn't it? Give me undivided heart, so I can focus on you and I can worship you. Ezekiel chapter 11, verse 19 says, I will give them an undivided heart and put a new spirit in them. I will remove from them the heart of stone and give them a heart of flesh. Again, the Holy Spirit wants to give us an undivided heart. Okay, undivided worship. So, in conclusion, we need both Mary and Martha. We need both practical and spiritual. We need both work and worship. But the priority is always the worship. I came across this article titled 10 Common Worship Distractions by this American author, by this professor. Okay, so he's talking about all those distractions in the church when it comes to worship. Okay, he talks about things like starting late, poor sound, and poor video quality, and loud music, and the grammatical errors on the screen, and the poor lighting, bad preaching, crowd movement, it's all those things. Okay, and so it's listing all those things. But if you make sure all those things are correct, you can still be distracted. You can still be distracted from worshiping the Lord. This is what Matt Redman, in the fantastic worship video, said. He said this: in some way, everything looked great. So that's in terms of music preparation. In some way, everything looked great. We had some wonderful musicians and a good quality sound system. There were lots of new songs coming through too. But somehow, we started to rely on these things a little too much, and they become distractions. You are so concerned about all the music sounds and right notes and right places and the music and songs and song sheets and everything. Okay, which is good, which is important. We want that. We want that properly prepared. But if you begin to rely on those things too much, they themselves becomes a distraction from the true worship. So in their church, one day the pastor decided, okay, all right, from next Sunday, no music, no sound system, no instruments, no singers, no worship team, nothing. Okay. We just want to focus on worshiping Jesus. So they had a drastic measure. Okay. So from following Sunday, there was no music, no worship team, nothing. And initially, people find it a bit awkward, because it was a silent, long period of silence, and people didn't know what to do. But then one by one, they began to worship God. They began to sing, not just through the music and the instruments, but from their hearts. Okay. And so from this period, the well-known song came, "When the music fades," the heart of worship. And the song goes like this: when the music fades and all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth that will bless your heart. Now, when you come to church, what kind of offering, heart of offering, do you bring? What kind of sacrifice do you bring? Okay. And the song goes on to say, "I bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, to the way things appear. You are looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things that I made it. When it's all about you, It's all about you, Jesus. So finding the heart of worship, the true worship, the undivided worship. Shall we sing that song? Can we try? Can we all stand? Let's all stand together and let's sing that song. Let's try and sing that song without music. Jung, can we try that?
Yeah.
So maybe if you can sing a cappella, and so we can try and sing this song together when the music fades.
When the music fades, all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth that will bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things I've made. When it's all about you, it's all about you, Jesus. When the music fades, and all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth that will bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things I've made. When it's all about you, it's all about you, Jesus. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. All about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things I've made. When it's all about you, it's all about you, Jesus.
Well, let's pray in response to the Word of God, and perhaps maybe as music is playing in the background, let's see our hearts and search our hearts and what Jesus might be saying to us when it comes to undivided worship or divided worship, distracted worship, undistracted worship. How's your heart? Are you sometimes like Martha? You have good meaning, you have good intention, you want to please Him, you want to serve Him, you want to bless Him, you want to bless people, you want to bless the church. But in doing so, are we sometimes distracted by all the details, worried, concerned, anxious about things, and we lose our focus? The most important thing, that is worshiping Jesus. And that's so easy. I know that as a church minister, That's so easy as church leaders and serving in different ways. Let's ask the Holy Spirit. Ezekiel said He will give us undivided love. So we worship Him, we spend quality time, quality worship. Let's ask the Holy Spirit to help us and to pour out His grace once again. Thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Jesus. Bless you, Lord. Before you this morning, we pray that we can all be undivided worshippers. Lord, we are sorry very often we become distracted, we become divided in our mind, and we become impatient, restless, and fidgeting. And we can be easily critical about things and lose our focus. And we can be easily anxious about details and all the details, concerned about many things. We lose our focus. Lord, we thank you for the lesson this morning, that what you want more than anything else is our heart, undivided love, undivided focus. And that's the offering that you are looking for. That's the sacrifice that you are looking for. Lord, you help us in this busy lifestyle. We can focus on you, we can worship you single-heartedly. And that's the lesson that we want to teach our children as well. So God, through the Holy Spirit, we pray that you would pour out your grace on each and every one of us. It is all about you, Jesus. It is all about you. It is all about you. We want to worship you. We want to lift your name on high. Hallelujah. And help us, Lord, when there are mistakes, we can embrace them. We can forgive one another. We can accept one another. And yet we be focused on you. Thank you, Jesus. Lord, as we continue our journey through learning more about worship, we pray that we can be better worshipers. We can be the worshipers that you are looking for. Hallelujah. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen. Let's sing this one once again. Hallelujah, praise, and then we close the service. Hallelujah, praise.
When the music fades, all is stripped away, and I simply come just to bring something that's a word that will bless your heart. I bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You're such much deeper within, through the way things appear. You're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things I made. When it's all about you, it's all about you, Jesus. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things I made. When it's all about you, it's all about you, Jesus. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the things I've made. When it's all about you, it's all about you, Jesus.
Amen. So for the rest of the week, let's think about this undivided worship, and so asking God to help us to be better worshipers. Let's close the service with a blessing. Let's bless one another. May the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all throughout this week and forever. Amen. Hallelujah.